You're welcome.
All set for a heated hearing on Capitol Hill after a botched mission that armed Mexico's ruthless cartels. Operation Fast and Furious deliberately allowed known criminals to traffic high-powered American weapons to Mexico. The idea was to track their movements and eventually cut off the flow of firepower. The problem is they lost track. California Republican Darrell Issa is the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on this important issue. As you know, today we'll be hearing from basically experts on whether or not Congress has the right to do this kind of investigation. The ranking member has consistently blocked and obstructed this investigation. So we're having a hearing in which people who know the Constitution, know the law, and know the history can tell us why this investigation has to go forward. On Wednesday, we'll have the first hearing on the substance, the actual people involved in it, both quite frankly, as to the mistakes that were made from the very beginning, but also from the families of the victims. This is not an accident that doesn't have consequences on both sides of the border.
Yeah, this as a new ATF investigation reveals that 70% of guns recovered in Mexico passed through the United States at some point. And of course, there are several sources. Some of these are bought in the U.S. Critics say exploiting lax gun law enforcement. Others are imported from Russia, China, Central America. But some, as we've mentioned, are entering Mexico, or did, through this Operation Fast and Furious, which was designed to track the weapons. Were some of those weapons tracked, and did this lead to some beneficial information and some kind of a stemming of the flow?
None whatsoever. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. What they've done is they've simply now indicted those people who they already had on videotape. They could have indicted them a year earlier and kept their guns from walking. What they're doing is covering their backsides. And quite frankly, when you hear from Handguns Inc. and these other groups who want to have the assault weapons ban put back on, what you see is a link between the administration, who's very anti-gun, but let this happen, and those who are now jumping on board, taking advantage and trying to say that the real problem is Americans' right to bear arms, when it's just the opposite. These gun dealers reported promptly the attempt for straw purchases, and instead of being told, okay, let's arrest these people, they got just the opposite, which was go ahead and sell them, we'll take care of it, but they didn't.
So you're talking about the fact that the hearing today is to determine whether or not the hearing on Wednesday can even take place. Are you implying that the government is trying to cover up or bury this supposedly botched operation?
The government's been trying to cover up, bury, and thwart this operation, both by using Elijah Cummings, the ranking member, and by refusing to answer first voluntary and then subpoenas all along the way. They've also gone to their agents and told them not to talk to us. There's been real interference with our investigation from day one. Today's hearing is really to make it very clear. We're not going away. We have a constitutional obligation, and we have an obligation on behalf of the families, both on the north and south side of the U.S. border, who have lost their loved ones because these weapons were let walk deliberately.
And, speaking of those families, the family of Brian Terry will be testifying in this hearing. Remind us of his story.
Well, the thing that's sad about Brian Terry is that the family's never really gotten a full and complete answer. At first, they tried to tell the family that these, in fact, were not related, and then they've continued to give half answers. So we're going to hear how families of people who were killed by these weapons were treated. But we have more than this. We have suspicions of many more losses. And as you know, the Mexican government has seen these weapons and is quite concerned that this 2,000 or 3,000 weapons may be the tip of the iceberg. And when they say 70% come from north of the border, we shouldn't have helped them go at such a fast rate. And very clearly, some of these 50 caliber and assault weapons were among the most powerful allowed to be sold, and they were allowed to be sold in vast quantities.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you.